What's going on, Pizza fam? Welcome back to the Pizza King podcast. I'm your host, Tyrell. As always, I sat down this week with a very special guest, Eddie Stalewski. Eddie is a world pizza champion, and what makes him unique is he's a world pizza champion without ever owning a pizza shop. He didn't start a shop. He didn't quit his job to go do it like a lot of folks did. Eddie's a home baker, but not in the sense that you're thinking. He started with a Tony G's Pizza Bible inside of a crate. I think he said inside of a crate and barrel store. He picked up a book and it hooked him. He made pizzas every single weekend for years. He made all the recipes in the book. He learned how to make dough. He actually got a job at two pizzerias locally so that he could train and become a better pizza maker. And what that led to was becoming a pizza champion. He won Best Pizza in the Northeast back in 2022. He won the Real California Milk Challenge, and he earned his World Pizza Champions jacket, all while keeping his full-time job. So what makes Eddie's story different is not just the wins that he had at the competitions, but it's the people that he met along the way. Folks like Tony G, folks like the Mercurio family, and how he was really intentional about building those relationships and building each connection. So this episode to me is just as much about how you build relationships in business and in this industry as it is about how you build a better pizza. So I hope you enjoy Eddie Stalewski.
Nothing. I was not into that. I mean, of course, I've been on the internet and stuff like that, but I was like sort of social media adverse because I kind of felt like I knew like what from people that I knew that were on social media. I didn't really want that to be in my head, if you know what I mean. We have some pictures and things like that.
So you say you had the iPad, but you personally weren't taking any photos of the pizzas in the early days.
No, and the funny story when I got it in 2017 was because I bought a brand new car, which was a Honda Civic 2017. Well, you go in there and you try to hook up a flip phone to this thing. It's like, I don't know what. So like the next day I went out and bought a smartphone.
You're like, my phone won't connect to the car. I gotta fix it. So new car, new phone, back-to-back days.
You understand what I'm saying? So, I did that and again, still making all these pizzas and things. I will tell another story. So as I was working my way through the book, I got my way to like the Chicago deep dish part of the book, right? And which was me making this deep dish pizza, and it was a stuffed crust deep dish. And so if you have the book and you open up the book to this stuffed crust deep dish pizza, it's a mammoth of a pizza, but what you got to put inside, I had to learn how to make sausage, which was homemade sausage. It's in the book. Follow the recipe. I bought a sausage attachment for my KitchenAid mixer, which was really cool, learning how to case sausage, making the sausage recipe that's in the book is phenomenal. There was like roasted red pepper. There was peppers in there. There was pepperoni. There was just so many other ingredients that went into this deep dish, and it was a double dough. So you basically had a dough, and then you had one on top that you sort of did like a rope crimp. So you do a rope crimp around it, this beautiful pizza. But my mother-in-law, I was telling her about like, I'd like to make this deep dish. I said, but you need this pan from Lloyd's Pan. Again, I didn't think she was going to buy the pan. So I'm cutting grass here one day and I see the UPS driving up and he's carrying his box, and on the outside of the box it says Lloyd Pans. I'm like, oh,
here we go.
So I guess I'm making a deep dish. So I made it. It was one of the most beautiful pizzas. It was one of the first ones I made. I have good pictures of that one. The rope crimp you do with your finger, you go around it. It's really beautiful, and it was really good. It was tasty, very filling. I loved it. I'm gonna start making more of those here. I'd love to make those pizzas. They're really fun.
That's not something you see in Pittsburgh very often. Is a Chicago deep dish style pizza.
No, nobody's really doing like cast iron here. Nobody's really doing like tavern style pizza like I do. Like there's so many like holes that I probably could fill here. I'm sure. We can get into that later, but like I said, I was working my way through the book, and then in 2018 or so, my we have family that lives on the West Coast, so in Santa Cruz, California. So I said, we gotta go, we gotta take a trip up to San Francisco. Never been. I said, I want to go to Tony's restaurant. So I go to Tony's restaurant. I order like 4 pizzas for the table there. Meanwhile, there's like four of us with my daughter. So, she was real tiny. And, we ordered these pizzas and I ordered ones that I made at home. So I wanted to, see how I compared to these pizzas. And sure enough, I was so very surprised how very similar the taste was to what I was making at home. And I'm like, he couldn't have just like put his recipes that he's making in the restaurant in his book. Well, I mean, in a way, he did, and
That's
he was
awesome.
open book. Put it right out there. Here I'm giving you the tools to the kingdom. Here, you go and do it. Right. That's what I kind of felt like, and I'm like, okay, so that really like encouraged me to come back and really like get nail this right. And so again, I would work my way. And I think the next style I started working on was my Sicilian style pizza, which I have yet to compete in a pizza competition with it. I think it's, in my opinion, it's one of the best pizzas that I make. I get so many compliments on it when I make it for friends and family.
Yeah.
I've not yet competed with it, so I'd like to do that one of these days, maybe up and coming here. But yeah, it's I worked real hard on it, and, it's beautiful, it's light, it's airy, and you can eat the whole thing, believe it or not. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't feel so full and stuffed after you eat it. Unlike the, Chicago deep dish, you'd
That's a
feel that
one
one.
that's a one slice and done, the Chicago deep dish. It's a that's a
Well, I
big
had
boy.
2 that day.
Yeah, you had 2 of them.
I had 2 that day.
Well, you put some work
Yeah.
into it. Before I hit record, you were kinda telling us how your mother-in-law had, um, kinda decided that she was just gonna support you even if you didn't ask for it. She sent you equipment, she sent you pans. I love that the family got behind you in that endeavor. As you were going through the book and you said you read it cover to cover before you made one pizza, did you kinda just list out the things you thought you could execute, or were there pictures or, you know, recipes you're like, "No, I definitely gotta try this one."
That's a really good question. I think I was naturally drawn to the deeper dish pizzas, the Sicilians. Also, what intrigued me were the thin crust pizzas, like the tavern style pizzas. Those really intrigued me because I had never heard of those pizzas. If you heard of like a St. Louis style pizza, I even
Mhm.
tried making that one with a Provel cheese, which I was not a big fan of, but it was delicious. Don't get me wrong. It just was not for me. I mean, it's a tavern style, but you basically par bake the pizza shells with a little bit of sauce on them, and then when it's time to go, you finish topping them and bake them off in the pizza in the oven. But those I like the grandma style pizza. I tried executing it. Mine always came out thicker than what typical grandma pizzas were. So I used to always get a lot of comments on Instagram. That's not a grandma pizza. We don't put sesame seeds on our grandma. I'm like, okay, well, okay, whatever. Detroit was very intriguing to me because I had never had a Detroit style. That was the thing about the book. It had all these different styles in it that I had never heard of, and I think that was the intention of the book is that, "Hey, look, there's a bigger world out there. Go try these out, and here's how you can make them in your house if you want to, right?" And I felt like that was, a challenge for me to like, hey, because I love to cook. That was the thing. You know, Pizza and cooking, it just fell into place for me. I will say this, my mom was a great cook. She was Italian, and so when she made when she made food for people, she always wanted to know how she always wanted she was very happy making food for people, and it made her feel good that when people said, "Boy, that's so good. It's so delicious," and I get that same feeling. I think that feeling brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
I think that's what drew me to it, and the passion for doing it comes from that, and beautify. I mean, that was the thing about Tony is as I got to know him and got to watch him and see him, I got to see how he beautifies a pizza, and that's it's like creating like a piece of art, with ingredients, and I think that was what was what drew me to it. How many times you go to a restaurant and they just slop the stuff on your plate or things just,
Hmm.
you eat with your eyes, right? I mean, all of a sudden you get this beautiful pizza that looks like, wow, what is this? And so, that's the feeling I was going for. I mean, when you get something bad at a restaurant, or I mean, it
Yeah.
may taste good, but it doesn't look good, and
It does.
that could
You could
really,
tell
turn you off
it
a little
wasn't
bit.
prepared with love and care.
Right, right, right. And I think that's one of my besides creating the dough recipe and all that, I think it's the end, like, at the when I'm done, I like when I gotta cut it, and then I gotta do some post-bake finishing to make it look beautiful. That's my favorite time with the pizza, in my opinion, that's just I just love it.
Were there any parts of the process that were difficult for you early on?
Well, I think that, it was more a lot of trial and error. I mean, when I say a lot of trial and error, I mean a lot of trial and error. Like, this was not like, I do this once in a while. I was making pizzas probably once or twice a week, just trying to figure it out on my own, right? My wife's friend had a birthday party at this Neapolitan pizzeria here called Il Pizziolo. He was the guy who kind of brought Neapolitan pizza here to Pittsburgh. Nobody even knew what Neapolitan pizza was. And actually, it's a good story. I don't know if you know who Roberto Caporuscio is. He's from Keste. He's the guy that owns Keste and Don Antonio in New York City.
I know the place, never met him though.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
he's like the godfather of pizza, I mean, but he started out in Pittsburgh, believe it or not, and I think the urban legend is that he slept on this guy's couch, the owner of Il Pizziolo, and he made cheese, and I think he also sold cheese. And then
Okay.
he branched out and started his own Neapolitan restaurant here in Pittsburgh called Regina Margarita. He put a wood fired oven in there. And so this is way before he became famous. I mean, probably some people knew who he was, but not a lot of people here. So he had this restaurant called El Pizziolo, and my wife's friend had this is Ron Molinaro actually owns El Pizziolo. So I went over there. I was watching these people make pizzas, and I was like, man, this is Neapolitan pizza. This is interesting to me. It's in the book, but you got to have a wood fired oven to really execute a
Yeah.
Neapolitan pizza. So I think I had an uni at the time. I think I bought like the first uni that was out there. So I was experimenting with it, but I was enthralled by seeing these people make these Neapolitan pizzas in this restaurant. And I had just mentioned to one of the guys there, and I said, hey, I really would like to learn how to do this, and they said, well, where do you live? And I said, I live, suburb out here in Pittsburgh. And they said, well, you're not going to believe this, but we're opening a second location, which was 10 minutes away from my house,
Wow.
maybe 6 or 7 minutes away from my house. So I'm like, they said, let me take your number. So they took my number. I don't know. It was probably 6 or 7 months later. I get a call from the head chef, and he's like, "Hey, we want you to come in for an interview." And so I came in, and I was working there like with my full time job. I'm in supply chain. I was working, so I was doing like 3 days a week over there because it was close to the house. So I was learning how to make the pizzas and stuff. And so I think around that time there was Pizza Expo. I didn't know what Pizza Expo was either, so it was like 2019. So I decided my friend actually worked. He just retired from the FBI, and he got transferred from Pittsburgh out to Las Vegas. And his name's James, and I said, James, I said, there's this Pizza Expo. They talk about this. I said, I want to come visit you, come stay with you. I said, I want to go to this Pizza Expo for a week. So I get a plane ticket and I go out there, and I was just I was floored. I had no idea what I was getting into. But I mean, day one,
So
I think I was going to all these different seminars. I mean, it was crazy. I signed up for two Tony Dimignani pizza classes, making pizza there. It was like Each class was $180 a piece. So I took two of them. It was actually on the convention floor. So I took those classes, which was really cool. Is I had my pizza Bible with me, and he signed my book. So yeah, I didn't meet him when I went out to San Francisco. Yeah, because he wasn't there. He might not. He might have been there. I don't know, but he wasn't at the restaurant the day I was there. But yeah, and when I was at the show, I just wanted to figure out what's going. I didn't even know about competitions or anything like that. So I went back in the competition area, and I happened to see some people from Pittsburgh. One of the guys, his name is Pete Tolman, who I'm good friends with today. He owns Ironborn Pizza here in the strip in our strip. He has two locations, and he's competing. He actually won best pizza in the Northeast that year, and he made. And then I saw there were some other Pittsburgh people hanging out there. And I had done some research up until that time, like who's who in Pittsburgh and pizza and stuff like that. So the other people that were watching Pete were the Mercurio family. So Michael Mercurio, Joey was there, Joey Mercurio, Anna Crusoe, which she's a Mercurio as well. And they were there standing. I went up and introduced myself to Michael because I had just read he won a Caputo Cup in Atlantic City. Okay. Well, I know this now, but back then, I never even went to Mercurius is another Neapolitan pizzeria here in Pittsburgh. So they they started up in 2012, and so I went up to Michael, and he's one of those guys like, hey, somebody knows me. Like he was like taken back by somebody came up to him and said, hey, this the star status, right? Like here I am, nobody, right? Got a little bit of an Instagram. I think I had my daughter put me on Instagram probably in 2019, but that was right around that same time. And so the funny thing is that he remembered that. So that was 2019, my first Pizza Expo, got my book signed, met some of these Pittsburgh people there. And then 2020 was COVID, right? So they delayed the Pizza Expo in Las Vegas to August of 2021, and I signed up to compete. And I mean, here I am, went 1 year just to get a lay of the land. I'm like, okay, I was working on stuff. I said, I'm gonna sign up and compete during COVID. So I competed in the pan division. There was only 32 contestants at the time, or competitors at the time, because it was people were funny about COVID and stuff. And I came in, believe it or not, I came in 12th out of 32, which I thought was
That's
pretty damn
awesome.
good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought and I learned a lot of things that I probably helped me along the way. But I said I'm going to go for it. So just trying to get out there, get your stuff out there, make the. But the cool thing is, I have my friend James, who if I need to, he was carting my butt around. If I had to go get supplies or something, he he I had everything at his house. I had a dough mixer there. I made all my stuff at his house. And then when it was time to go, I have a separate cooler out there. I have all my paraphernalia and stuff out there. So when I go out there, it's like Eddie's Pizza West Coast competed that year. Again, I came in 12th. So then 2022. So let me go back real quick though. So the Mercurios, they have a pizzeria here in Pittsburgh, and
Mhm.
they actually are known for gelato. So they had a gelato, making business. They still do today. It's one of their, main businesses. But the two boys, Michael and Joey, actually went to study under Roberto Caparucio, because Roberto left Pittsburgh, went to New York City, and started up Keste and Don Antonio. So the family wanted them to learn from someone that is the best at it. So they went and studied under him for about 2 weeks. So it just so happens I was driving on this out in the suburbs, and I'm looking and I see this sign, and it says Mercurio is now hiring. I'm like, what is going on? So they opened up a second location in Fox Chapel. I saw the sign. I called my wife. I said, hey, I said, Mercurius is opening this uh Neapolitan pizzeria. I said, I think I'd like to go work there. Can I go work under these guys that studied under Roberto Caparucio? I said, I'll learn how to really make Neapolitan pizza, the way that, the pros make it. I go in there, I get interviewed on the spot. A general manager that was there actually used to be the general manager at Il Pizziolo, where I worked as well for about a year. So he was there, so he knew me. Anna Crusoe's husband, Steve, was there interviewing. So, yeah, you didn't have a resume. I had my like iPhone. I think it was my resume, and I said, here's my Instagram.
This is what I do.
So meanwhile, Steve's taking a picture of me. He sends it to Michael and says, "You know this guy?" He goes, "Yes." He goes, "That guy loves pizza. Hire him." And what he remembered was the
Expo.
interaction. He remembered the expo interaction, and um, yeah. So those guys, so Michael and Joey and Anna, they're world pizza champions. I didn't even know what world pizza champions were. I mean, you get to know when you go out to expo, and you're like, wow, this is cool, right? And then so at that, I think in that 2019 and 2020, there was a pizza fest here in Pittsburgh, the first pizza fest ever. And Ironborn was there, Mercuria's was there, and I was just there just to take it all in. My wife and I were going just to eat pizza, and I saw Michael there, and Michael was making pizzas, and he goes, "Hey, dude," he goes, "if it's just me here making pizzas for all these people that are here, it was hundreds of people, 2 sessions." He goes, "You're not busy. Why don't you come over here and start help make some pizzas?" I had interviewed at his place. So I started making pizzas there, and that was the same time. Those guys actually found out though, so Michael and Joey, not Anna, and Pete Coleman all found out that night that they became world pizza champions that night. I found that out like later after the fact.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, pretty cool, right? But and then like go back to Expo in 2022, I competed again. And remember what I told you? The tavern style pizza was something like, okay, I ain't seen nobody making this out Pizza Expo. When you go out there, you gotta like kind of like get a lay of the land and figure
Hmm.
out what anybody's doing. So I said, I'm going to make tavern style pizza. So I worked on it here. Of course, if I'm making pizzas here in my house, I don't have a pizza master oven. I don't have a Maraforni oven here. So, but there's people here in Pittsburgh that do. So Pete Tolman at Ironborn, he has a pizza master. So when you go to competitions, they have a pizza master there. So I would go down there. I would go down there. I don't know. I was going down to his place probably, I don't know, 4 weeks in a row, and I go down and do test bakes in his oven, making that same competition pizza over and over and over and over, so that I know when I step up to the plate or the oven, I know what my temperatures are, I know what my bake times are.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different variables though when you're at Pizza Expo than at being at Pete's Place, because people aren't opening and closing the oven at Pete's Place. You got your dedicated oven. When you're at Pizza Expo, people are messing around. So you really got to eyeball some things, when you're there. But that year, I made these two tavern style pizzas actually in a pan with a frico edge. And I put pepperoni roses on. So you've
Oh,
seen pepperoni roses probably on
love
my
the
page and
pepperoni
stuff, right?
roses.
Nobody had seen no this was a non-traditional category. And what I found out was the pan competition that I had was in the previous year during the COVID thing. There was When you were in pan, there was no like regional trophies or anything like that. Like you had to win it all or you didn't win it. Then I found out if you're in non-traditional, you could win it all, but then they have regional trophies and things like that. So I said, well, why don't chances will be better if I can if I don't win it all, I can maybe win a regional, right?
Hmm.
So I, I decided to, compete in non-traditional. And no, when they say non-traditional, they really like, you got to bring it. You got to come with something that they ain't never seen before, never tasted before. And I think the pepperoni roses is what kind of helped me. So I made two of these pizzas. Back then you could make two. Now they only regulate you to make one pizza for from a timing perspective. But there was a strategy involved. If you made two pizzas, I like to cut my pizzas and then dress them if you've seen any of my Instagram stuff, because when you cut them, you have stuff all over them. It gets messy,
Yeah.
right? And again, you're trying to make this beautiful presentation to the judges. So, so what I did is I made two pizzas up. One I didn't cut, dressed it up, and then the other one I cut, dressed it up, and then they got the one that was uncut. The judges did, and then when it came back out to me, they wanted me to cut it. I said, "Well, I already have one cut." And what was nice is that I didn't have to do all this and make it all messy. I was able to give the judges
Clean
nice
slices.
pieces
Yeah.
that were not all clean slice. I learned that. I learned that from the year I competed at in COVID. I watched other people do it, and I'm like, that's smart. And I think the judges like it uncut, presented to them. But I now whenever I make pizzas for the judges, I like to cut it because it even looks good even cut. You can't even tell sometimes that it's cut the way you dress it up. But that year, I won Best Pizza in the Northeast. I was seventh overall. I think Michael Vacnine, another world pizza champion, I think he came in first that year. But I was looking at, yes, there was no digital stuff. And then I was with Pete Tolman, and I'm looking, and I had no idea about this regional award. Like I had no idea. Like all of a sudden, I look over here, and there's this other board, and it says, and my name was at the top of the list, and I was like 2 or 3 points way ahead of everybody. So I won Best Pizza in the Northeast in 2022. That kind of put me on the map with those pepperoni roses. That was a greatest feeling. I got a plaque. I got $500. Standing up there with not being. I was working in a pizzeria. It wasn't like I was somebody off the street.
Yeah.
But these are my creations. I felt real proud. Just to be up there with all those people, and it kind of put me on the map a little bit. But
I love that about your story that even though I guess technically the internet or social media sees you as a home baker, but you were putting in the reps. You were spending the pizzerias.
reps, man. Well, the other thing I didn't tell you is, and I don't like to share this too much, but I was making pizzas here for friends and family for like 4 years in a row. So my week. So during COVID, we worked from home for 3 years. Okay. And so I'm like, okay. So I was started making like pizzas. I'd make like five pizzas. Friend down the street or another friend would say, "Hey, will you make me some pizzas or something?" I'm like, okay, sure. So I started making these pizzas on Saturdays, and in my oven, I boxing. All of a sudden, word of mouth started flowing around, and so if you came and got a pizza and you told a friend and a friend and a friend and a friend, those were connections. There was no. I did no public advertisement of like what I was doing here. It was totally friends of friends of friends. Somebody you had to know somebody to get in. That quickly blew up to like 18, making 18 to 20 pizzas every Saturday. So I know. And I was also doing pizza. I was doing pizza classes, and I was doing parties. I was going to people's houses and doing parties. And I mean, it was crazy. And I was doing it. So I'm still not so routinely
Mhm.
as I was doing it. Just friends and family would put the pizzas in there, put the blankets on top, and then they just drove off. And then they would send you, if they wanted to send you any money, they'd send you some money on Venmo and stuff like that. But it wasn't for listen, it was not for the money. It was more for just getting a lot of Instagram content. And just again, I'll go back to my mom, right? Just going back for the joy and love of doing it and seeing the smiles on people's faces and how happy people are, and the conversations that we would have. I mean, I can reconnected with friends that I hadn't seen in years, right? They
Yeah.
came out of the woodworks and they found that I was making pizzas. And it was just, and it was the social part of it that I enjoy. And even at the restaurant, people come in, which is really cool. People come into the restaurant, and you'll see them, and they're on their phone, like, there he is. There he is up there. He's making pizzas. Who's that guy making pizza from the internet up there? And they're a little bit shy and bashful about coming up and saying hello to you. But some people will, the waitresses will say, "Hey, that table over there, they're big fans of you over there." So what I'll do is if it ain't too busy, I'll run out and go and say hello to them to the table. And how many times you go to a restaurant and a manager comes over to you and is very cordial with you and things like, you're going to go back to that place, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not my restaurant, but it's my brand at the end of the day. And so, and I rep my brand, and I also represent their brand. And so that's means something to me. I'm just not some guy fake, if you know what I mean. You can obviously tell I'm not
You're,
fake.
you're you're definitely not a fake guy, and you're super nice. I'm happy because I finally got a chance to meet you in Vegas this a couple of months ago, and I've been following.
Yeah.
I think the pepperoni rose is what pulled you on my feed, and I've been able to watch, and Dude, I can see without a doubt that you put the utmost amount of care and detail into your pizzas. I mean, it's got to feel great because you got a ton of followers. The pizzas look great, but when people see that or people copy it, like how does it feel to just know that like you're not just making pizzas at home for yourself. You're actually inspiring other people to get on that journey or to start making some pies.
That's the other part of this that I've gotten so many messages from so many people that I have inspired them to make pizzas. Or I don't know if it's like, well, hey, if that guy can do it, anybody can do it. I think it's not that. I think that people just are drawn to the hey, I think I can do this. And so many people have contacted me. I wish I could post all their all their sayings up on the wall and whatnot, but I mean, just tremendous tremendous inspiration that I get from people so many times send me pictures of their work that I see, and I'm always encouraging. That's the thing. There's a lot of negativity on social media, and I don't choose to partake in that. You
Yeah.
can get somebody saying, they'll go off on a tangent. Now, meanwhile, it's good for the algorithm if you want to try to get
Mhm.
views and whatnot. But and that's okay, it's fine. And always take the high road when it comes down to, because what ends up happening is that people can see you, and see through that. And what ends up happening is other people start commenting, saying, they start taking your back on
Yeah, I
things,
love
right? And
that.
then you don't have to do anything. You just sit back and let them argue it out, right? I, it's all fun and game. You got a lot of trollers out there, but you just gotta stay away from that, because at the end of the day, it's all about moving pizza forward to the next level, and that's what I'm about. And I'm not saying I'm the best pizza maker in the world, but I want to encourage people to try it and do it, and you'll get a lot of joy out of it.
Do you still feel like a student? I mean, you started with Tony G's Pizza Bible. You've gone through competitions,
Yeah.
you won Northeast,
Yes.
you got a huge following, you're helping, the shop in Pittsburgh. You still feel like a student or do you?
Yes, so much to learn. There's so many. I'd say so many. You may not think, but I always self check myself. There's so many things that I want to do, and I feel like there's a lot of things that I can improve upon. Like, you know, I first started out making New York style pizzas from the book, but do I make New York style pizzas? No. It's something that I'm good at doing. Yes, but I don't practice it as much as I'd like to. So that's a style that, that I think I can really do a good job with, but I'm not afraid to admit. But I have some weaknesses. I think everybody has weaknesses. If you're,
Absolutely.
unafraid, if you're afraid if you're afraid to say them, then you got problems. But like I said, those are things for you to work on, right?
Mhm.
To make things better. And I think there was a class in Belchville, Maryland, that I snuck into. Tony G used to have a pizza school in San Francisco. $1,000. Well, I was saving up my money to go to this thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. And then, and then all of a sudden he started getting pulled into different directions with his franchises, and he couldn't do it anymore. Really, I mean, not that he couldn't do it. He'll say, um, it just got to be too demanding, probably for his time, and
I'm
and also he
sure.
had like Laura Meyer was working for him. She was a big part of the training as well. She went in and opened up a restaurant herself, so he stopped doing that. But then there was this one last class he was going to do, and it was going to be at Mara Forney in Belchville, Maryland. And I saw it on Instagram, and I saw it, and it was sold out like that same day. I think he launched it. So I was bummed out, and some sponsors of mine, Grande Cheese, for example, a local rep here, a good friends with, he happened to be dropping off some cheese to my house one day, and he brings his boss with him. His name is Steve Selznick. He's following me on Instagram. I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, I want to come and see what's going on here. Like, what's going on? And, traveling with Mark, we're going to visit some pizzerias here in Pittsburgh. And I told him about this Tony G class, and he's like, He goes, he goes, Grande sponsors that. He goes, and I said, no, I didn't know. He says, I'm teaching the cheese portion of that class. I'm like, get out of town. Let me make a phone call. So he makes a phone call and calls Francesco from Maraforni, and they had like 18 people, and they slid me in as number 19. So
Look
I
at
get
that.
in there. It was $2,000. It was not 4,000. I could drive to it. I didn't have to take a plane. It was like 3.5 hour drive from here to Pittsburgh down there, easy drive. I go down there and take this class. And what was really cool was that, and that's where I met Cedric
Yeah. Love
down
Cedric.
there. Yeah, so Cedric's working for Maraforni.
Oh
So
yeah, he
he
was
was
just starting
Tony's.
as
This
their
is a good
culinary
story.
guy, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So he's Tony's assistant, okay, during this class. And there's 19 of us. And and I'm there, and Tony knows who I am, and so somebody from the back who um they said, "Hey Tony, what's a trending pizza styles that are out there?" And I had just won best pizza in the Northeast in Vegas. He goes, cast iron skillets are hot. He goes, and tavern style pizzas are really hot. And he looks out there and Eddie, he says, Eddie won best pizza in the Northeast. He goes, tell them what you made, Eddie. I'm like, and everybody's looking at me like crap, like who's this guy, right? I'm like the guy in this room. So the cool thing was that Tony knew I worked at Mercurio, so he knew I knew a little bit about making dough, large scale and things like that. So there was a dough making portion of the class, and we broke up into groups, and there was like 6 or 7 of us, and we all had a hand in making the dough and stuff. And so we're making stuff over here, and other groups making. And I don't know. We did something wrong. I think we were measuring out the flour, and somebody left a plastic cup in the flour. We didn't have enough flour at the end of the day. Weight, you know what I mean? Because of the plastic cup, you know. Anyways, long story
Yeah.
short, the dough didn't come together. It came together eventually. So then after you were done making dough, you would then go make pizzas up at the oven. So we're up there at the oven. Tony's got a microphone on, and he's doing like he's bantering between me and him about, because he told us to put the book away. We weren't allowed to use the book. And then I looked over and I saw the other group that was over by him. I said, you made us put the book away. I said, what about those guys? I said, they did put the book. So it was fun. We had some really good camaraderie, between him and I. And it was very fun. But at the end of the day, at the end of the class, he asked us, "What are you doing for dinner?" He goes, "Hey, I got plans." So Tony looks at me and he goes, "What are you doing for dinner?" I said, "Well, what are you doing for dinner?" And he says, Giulio Adriani has a place up in D.C. He says he invited me to come up. I said, you want to go? I got a car. I got my wife's car. He says, yeah. He says, want to go? He says, now? Yeah. Let's go now. I said, because it's going to take us some time to get there. So him and I drive in my wife's car. Meanwhile, I had to call my wife before. I said, "You're not going to believe this when I tell you
Like
this."
Tony
I said,
G's
"But
getting in the car.
in your dirty Subaru, you get in." Meanwhile, so we drive. I mean, just it was, and we go. We have a great time. Actually, another pizza maker friend of mine. His name's Jeff Taylor. So Jeff is in the Baltimore area. He goes by Staglio's Pizza if you're following on
I am.
Instagram.
I am.
So Jeff's great guy. Jeff knew I was there. Jeff says, "Hey, I'm gonna come down. I want to get Tony to sign my book." So he comes in. I introduce him to Tony, um, like I'm Tony's PR guy now, right? So
Like,
come
come
here,
on, I
Jeff.
got
So Jeff comes over. So Jeff gets to go with us too. Jeff goes to dinner with us. We go to dinner. We go to both of him and I go to dinner with Tony. Jeff's driving by himself because he's going a different direction after he leaves. So it's just me and Tony and my wife's car. But it was great. It was funny. I was kind of like showing him what I was planning on making for Pizza Expo and stuff, because this was in February. So Pizza Expo was coming up in March. He's going through my phone. He goes, I like that pizza. I like that pizza. I like that one. And, but
Oh,
it was
cool.
good just to have a face to face conversation. Meanwhile, he was getting phone calls left and right from people. I mean, it was crazy, things he was organizing back in San Francisco. But then after that, it was good. I think these interactions you have with people like this really, help. I mean, it helped me here. I think in the long run, just to um having these conversations and really kind of getting to know you, like, hey, this guy's a pretty nice guy, pretty cool guy, loves pizza type of thing. And I think that was, you know, that's how things work in this world, right? You make connections, and these connections, these pieces that I've made over these years, it's incredible. A lot of it had to do with going to Pizza Expo. A lot of it had to, I forced the issue with some of these things, going to work at Mercuria's and getting to know them, and then they become world pizza champions. And so, and then there's all these, connections with people that you make over the time. If I had to go back, it wasn't scripted though. That's the thing,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit. I think maybe I had some ideas of what I was thinking, but I never would have thought that, I always dreamt that I would, once I understood what the World Pizza Champions team is and what it means, I think I started aspiring to be that. And I started making it known that I would like to be on the team. The other thing I didn't really say is, once I won that Best Pizza in the Northeast, and then that Tony interaction, and I also was applying. There was a real California pizza contest that they had. I think that's 8 years running that they've had. So I've been applying to that thing for 8 years. You put a picture in, but you can only send in two pictures, and you got to give your recipe, what you're doing, and then they pick you. Well, then the one year in 2024, they picked my guess what pizza they picked. I submitted that one with the pepperoni roses.
Yeah, I bet.
They picked it. I had to execute. I had to execute it there and get it to the judges. I won that year, and I won $7,500.
That's awesome.
All expense paid. All expense paid to go to Napa, California. And what was really cool was that my wife's sister lives in Santa Cruz, again, West Coast. Well, Napa is only 2 hours from Santa Cruz. So I flew to my sister-in-law's house, did all my prep work there, drove all my stuff from there, rented a car one way. And then, and I had all my stuff already prepped. And then the next day I was competing in the competition, and I ended up winning that year. Pizza Expo was in 20. I mean, I've been competing
You've
on
been
making
doing
all
them
kind of
all.
Pizza Expo, right? Yeah, I was still competing. There was competition in at least the Atlantic City that I competed in, and then I went back the next year. I put in another pizza for this Real California, and I got accepted again. It was a cast iron skillet, beautiful cast iron skillet. I had these cast iron skillets sent from Lodge Cast Iron to my sister-in-law. They sent me 8 cast irons. I didn't pay for them. I ended up giving them away to all the contestants after I was done. And that was in 2025. I won, and the prize that year was like 5,000, 5,500. So I won 5,000 that year. The judges again that year were Tony, Laura Meyer. Who was the third judge? Oh, it was Glenn. I think it was Glenn again. I think all three of those were Glenn. So, again, the connections you make. One other thing I will say, I'm very proud of this, and I'm not a gloater, or I don't really like to, but there was I want to say it was in 2024. It was called PizzaCon. It was in Philadelphia. There was a 1 day
Yeah, I saw
thing.
that. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't get a chance to go. It was like the same
So
time
I
as
went there.
another show. Yeah.
There was no competitions or anything. So the big thing on that show was that the keynote address speakers was Tony Geminiani and John Arena. They were announcing the John Arena Foundation that
Okay.
the World Pizza Champions were starting. But both of those guys got up there and were talking. And Tony was up there and he was talking. And there's thousands of people there. I'm in the middle. I mean, I'm in the middle, like far from the stage. Like you probably can't even see me, but I'm there, like center in the middle. I got a red shirt on in the middle. And so he's talking. So Tony's talking about his dad and how his dad coached his soccer team. And he was talking about the World Pizza Champions and how he formed this World Pizza Champion team. And and he talked about, you don't have to be the best, he goes, but these some of the people that were on the team. And he said, he says, you don't have to. He also said, he was talking about Anthony Scardino, which is in the Chicago area, the professor. But
I
he
talked to
was
him in
talking
Vegas. We're
about
gonna
him.
get him on the show though. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome, dude. But Anthony didn't have a pizzeria. He gets on the team mainly because Tony, saw something in him, right? It's not about whether you own a pizzeria or not, because there's a lot of people that are on a team that own a pizzeria. It's what it, what's your platform? What are you pushing forward, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, do I have aspirations of a pizzeria? Yeah, sure I do. But I don't have one now. And probably Anthony didn't either. And Anthony has like two or three of them now, right? But he's talking about Anthony because I guess some of the team members were giving him slack, the Tony slack. Hey, look, this guy doesn't even own pizzeria. And Tony's like, you watch, this guy's going to win championships. He says, it's not about whether you own a pizzeria or not. He says, what's inside that counts. He says, what's in here? And he points out into the audience. He says, it's like the Eddies out there. He says, that guy loves pizza. He goes, I think he loves pizza more than I do. First of all, people are looking at me like, who's this guy again? Kind of like deer in headlights. And I was just taken back that he mentioned me. And then after that, we did a social media thing with me and him, because that was the time they actually launched this Pursuit of Pizza book that I got an advance copy of. So, hence the Pizza Bible. Now this is like the Pursuit of Pizza is like the sequel, I
Oh,
guess, right?
for the pizza. Yeah, yeah, I understand.
Only yeah, but it has like QR codes in it and everything. But anyways, I started making pizzas in there. So the social media person who's works on the World Pizza Champion team, they would show me making a pizza, and then me and Tony talked about. But he mentioned, he goes, yeah. I said, I told him thank you for it, acknowledging me. I said, I can't really. I saw you out there. He says I saw you out there. I said I saw you. You saw me. You made eye contact with me. I just couldn't believe it that he pointed me out like that. So, he's a great guy. He's like one of the hardest working people I think that I've ever known,
I,
just incredible.
I don't even understand how it's almost like there's 10 of them, because you'll see him opening a franchise here, and then he's making pizzas on a cruise ship here, then he's doing classes at Expo. It's like, dude, when and where do you sleep? Because you're everywhere in the country and still like has so much joy and has time to talk to folks and put people on and do podcast interviews and all these other things. He's a machine.
I think I think the lesson is that when you start feeling sorry for yourself, you look at him and you be like, okay, I, I shouldn't feel sorry for myself because I'm not working as hard as this guy is.
Yeah.
I
I,
mean, that's the lesson there, is that, and look at all these professional athletes. I mean, they always say I always reference him as the Michael Jordan of pizza, because he always gets the goat,
yeah.
labeled there. But I don't know if he likes that. He's just being himself at the end of the day. Um, you know, those professional athletes, those guys don't, Kobe Bryant and folks like that, they don't get to that stature without, just by sitting and eating chips. And he told me one time, I was actually getting ready to compete, and I was early in the morning, and it was 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was unloading my car at Pizza Expo. And who do I see come walk into the place? 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm glad to see I'm not the only person that gets up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Machines, absolute machines, both of you. I think the lesson for
Yeah.
me in just listening to your story is not only do you have, obviously passion for pizza and passion for doing things at a high level, but the attention and the passion you have behind just having good relationships and meeting people and learning from folks and continuing to foster that, because your story is, to me, isn't even about pizzas. It's about the people that you met along the way who
Mhm.
contributed one way or the other to who Eddie's Pizza 412, the page, but who Eddie Stalewski is as a man today, as a pizza maker. I mean,
Right.
that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, it's not me. It's all the people that you surround yourself with. It's my wife. It's my daughter. I wouldn't be able to do the things I do here without them. I mean, my wife does she'll record my videos, and I'm not sometimes not the the easiest going person when she's filming me because I want it done a certain way. And I think when I first started making pizzas for friends and family and things, I remember my daughter, it was so Saturdays, they're usually going shopping, right? So I'm here making pizzas and people are coming to pick pizzas up. And I remember my daughter saying, like, "Dad, why are you doing this?" I'm like, "Well," I said, I don't know why." I said, I think I do." I said, I think it's because people want these pizzas and I want to make these pizzas for them." That's the best answer I could give her. Now, fast forward, and I'm like, did I think that I would be here today knowing from that question that she asked me 4 or 5 years ago that I don't, it's just fascinating to think like I went from there to here in that time. I mean, I've been at 2013 for it's over a decade,
Yeah.
and you can't. I mean, the time not, now that you become world pizza champ, it's not like becoming going into the Hall of Fame or anything like that. This is where your career starts,
Yeah.
is right here, right now. I think in that regards, it's invigorated me. Just from the organizations and things that the team is involved with, the John Arena Foundation, Slice Out Hunger, Kids Feeding Kids. There's all these different organizations. We do donations to Make-A-Wish Foundation every year at Pizza Expo. Again, John I mentioned John Arena Foundation was started. So these things are we're a nonprofit, but those things where you can give back to the community uh, is something that I like to do and am inspired to do.
I love to hear it. Well, learning your story has been incredible. You're an awesome dude. Your pizzas obviously look great. I am almost 1000% sure that anybody listening to me talk is already following your page. But just in case there's one person out there, how do they find you?
You can find me actually on Instagram and Facebook. It's Eddie's Pizza 412. So Eddie's Pizza 412. That's my handle. I just recently, I'd say over the last year, got on Facebook. I was totally on Instagram. Unless you're someone with millions and millions of followers, you ain't making no money. I mean, I think at one time I was making some decent cash, but that was whenever they were competing with TikTok and they
Hmm.
didn't have Reels yet. And all of a sudden, so they were paying a lot of content creators to, hey, generate some buzz and stuff. So we did that. My followers grew real fast, real quick, and you getting paid pretty decent cash. And all of a sudden, it went
That same, yeah, I
straight
caught
down,
that.
right?
I caught the same wave. Yeah, it was good for a
It's
summer.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah, no, but where if you get the sponsors is where it's at, my reach, for me with 170 some thousand followers, my reach is way bigger than somebody with like 1,000, 2,000 followers. So why wouldn't a pepperoni company or a cheese company or an equipment company or somebody want to get, because for what they would pay me to do some social media content versus what they would have to pay a PR company to do it. It's peanuts. So, because those guys can't reach the same amount of people or the direct people that are following me as. So it's a win-win. That's why a lot of these content creators are doing so well, because some of the companies have figured it out. I mean, I get approached all the time from companies, but there's a lot of companies approach you about doing this, doing that. I'm real, so I like promoting companies that I'm
that
using
that you
and
use and
like to
you really
use.
believe in. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, but if Jersey Mike's wanted to do something with me, or want to, I'm a big Jersey Mike's guy. If we want to make a sandwich pizza or something, with Jersey Mike's, that wouldn't be too bad either.
There it is. Well, I'm going to send this clip to Jersey Mike's and see if we can make that happen. Eddie, thank you
Wouldn't that
so
be
much.
something?
Thank you so much for spending some time with me
Hey, thanks,
this
Tyrell. I
afternoon.
appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Man, I'm a huge fan of yours. Love the work. Love the passion just behind the whole story. And I'm glad I got to know it a little bit better. I'm looking forward to just continuing
Great.
to have a relationship with you. So thanks for doing this for me.
Yeah, same here. If you need anything or you need any other folks that you'd like to have on, I got a list of names you probably would love to have on there. Good guy, good friend of mine is Jimmy Henry to Jimmy Hank Pizzas. He's great,
I see
great
his
dude.
stuff too. Yeah, he's been doing like some podcast stuff too and live.
Yeah, you should get him and he actually started Virtual Pizza Academy.
Yeah.
Him and another guy, Jim Marabelli from NEPA Pizza Review.
Uh-huh.
Those two would be great to have on your show, man.
I'm gonna
They're
reach
they're
out.
awesome dudes. You can tell 'em I said it. They already know it, but you know, I can get you their contact if you need it, but you could probably reach out to him through social. This Pizza Expo was the capstone for me. I was invited to do a demonstration with Tony on the main stage, 600 people watching me make pizza. Jimmy was there as well. He's not a world pizza champion yet,
Not yet.
but um, you know, yeah, I mean, you can't get on a stage with Tony and you're not, you got to be somebody, right? At least somebody, So I was, we both were on the stage together, and so it was uh for me being on that stage, there was a part of the presentation or part of my demo that I, I wanted to bring out my pizza Bible because I had it with me and I didn't really know how to do it. We only have so much time, and I knew if I would have started off with this book, I would have probably been like bawling and crying because telling about my journey, like I was telling you. Linda didn't cry today, but telling about my journey, um, and then there was a time where Tony would kind of, during the present demonstration, he comes over and he sort of says something. He's, "How's that look?" or something like that, because he was bringing the pizzas over to my, and I said something to him, and I said, "Oh, it looks good," or something. I said, "Does this pizza look familiar to you?" And he kind of like laughed. And then I picked up my book and I said, I said I've been a admirer of Tony for many, many years. I said I bought this book. I said in 2013, 14, like I told you, I said I came to Pizza Expo in 2019. He signed my book, and I just held it up and I said, I never would have thought that I'd be here on this stage making pizzas in front of you all. So it was incredible. And then that was the same that same week I got the jacket. So it
Full
couldn't have been more scripted
full
in
circle
in a
moment
way.
for you, man. That's incredible.
Full circle moment.
All
Incredible.
right, well, close it out with one piece of advice for somebody at home who is probably going to pick up a Pursuit of Pizza or a Pizza Bible or Mastering Pizza, like any one of those books. Like, piece of advice for somebody getting started and with aspirations to end up with a World Pizza Champion jacket like yourself.
Yeah, I would definitely say, it doesn't have to be those books, but I strongly advise the Pizza Bible in particular. That was the one, and it's very still current and everything. But my advice would be and just start out like I did. Start out slow, follow the book, make the recipes, and can continue to make them over and over, and just enjoy it. I think that's the best thing is enjoy the process. You may or may not make it to this. And again, I don't even know if it was something that was on my radar, but I just, I think as I went along, I started thinking, maybe there's a possibility but you got to have fun with it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I made so many mistakes. You're not going to make a perfect pizza every time, but there's going to be times when you actually do, and you got to keep at it and keep doing it and keep doing the reps. I think repetitions is part of being
Yes.
a perfectionist and successful. So I think that would be my lesson I would leave everybody. Use good ingredients. Don't cut corners. When it says to get these kind of tomatoes, get these kind of tomatoes. It says get this kind of flour because there's a reason why they're telling you that.
Right
And
on.
so those are the things that I learned along the way that I still do to this day. So
Very good stuff. Do the reps and don't cut corners with ingredients. You heard it from the man himself. Thanks so much, Eddie.
definitely
I appreciate you.